Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my dear colleague for South Shore St. Margaret's for having shared her time with me. Unfortunately, I don't agree with her position, and we won't have much time to debate this because of the time allocation.
And I'm going to throw in Bill C-30 because I wasn't allowed to speak to Bill C-30. We rushed through it so fast that I didn't get a speech at second reading. But C-30 and C-31, back to back as omnibus budget bills, both of which have had a reduction of debate due to the newly minted majority Liberal government. We weren't given the normal amount of time to have debate before moving to the vote at second reading. So, Mr. Speaker, that has been, as I'm sure that Speaker recognizes how often I've raised this concern in the House. It's accelerated. It's becoming de rigueur. It's almost every single bill that we're told we've had enough time to talk about it. Now move on. Now, what I want to focus on in the time I have now, and there are many things that one would focus on in two omnibus bills. The one we're debating today, C-31, is 331 pages long. I lugged it around with me all weekend, but there's only one part of it that I want to raise now. But there would be more, and when we get to committee, perhaps I'll get an opportunity there to try to say a word or two. But let's just go back. These are budget implementation acts, both of them. C-30, which is now past second reading, and C-31 that we're debating now. So one would think there's a very strong connection to the budget. That's what the point is. These are implementation for the budget. So if you go back to the budget, now in Bill C-30, the part I want to talk about, and in C-31, are significant changes to the Pest Control Products Act. Now, we remember November 4th and the 2025 budget. It was all about Build Canada Strong. There was much in it. There's one line about the Pest Control Products Act, which is now the subject of changes in both C-30 and C-31. Here's the one line from Budget 2025, quote, "The government proposes to amend legislation to remove cyclical pesticide reevaluations to enable modern risk-based oversight." Now, according to Prevent Cancer Now and Eco-Justice, one of the country's leading environmental law groups, this is not about modern risk-based oversight. This is about reducing the regulation of pesticides, reducing environment and health and safety controls that can actually affect human health as well as the environment in ways that I found completely shocking. Now, if I may, Mr. Speaker, because the debate on Bill C-30 was shut down after 3 hours. That's why there wasn't time for every member or even every party to make a speech. Or I did manage to ask when it was first tabled, I did manage to ask the Parliamentary Secretary for Finance how it was that there was these provisions to so weaken pesticide oversight and pesticide reviews, and wouldn't it be possible then to have the section of the bill, which was Bill C-30, which was found in Division 8, wouldn't it be possible to pull Division 8 out and have it go to a committee to be studied, a committee on health or a committee on environment? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary said he'd look into it, but I heard nothing further. And so far as we know, this is going to the Finance Committee, not a Health and Safety Committee. But just because I haven't had an opportunity to speak to this in the House, and it does relate to C-31, because it's more of the same. But what C-30 does, which is astonishing, is say that if a minister has decided that a pest control product, in other words, a pesticide, this covers herbicides, insecticides, rodenticides, all manner of products that are intended to kill living things, so insecticides and herbicides being the most common. If there is a registration that the minister decides, I'll summarize it, that the pest product is so dangerous that it can't be used, that usually is the end of the matter. But now, because of Bill C-30, which is, as I said, after 3 hours of debate, pushed through to second reading, now the Cabinet can override the Minister of Health or the Minister of Environment if they can, I'll read it, if they consider it, quote, necessary to do so to protect national economic security, regional economic security, or national food security. Now, when you go back to the original budget, the only justification, they've thrown in this justification here and there. Sometimes it's referred to as they have to make these measures because they want to move to, as I mentioned before, modern oversight. In other places, it's referenced as though we can bring down the cost of groceries if we use more pesticides. There's no evidence for this, none whatsoever. But in any case, Bill C-30 does something that I find, having worked on pesticides in this country as an environmental lawyer, and before being an environmental lawyer as an actress, I've worked on pesticide issues in this country since 1975. No government has ever attempted something as reckless as this, that a decision of the minister responsible that a substance is too dangerous to be used can be overturned by cabinet. In cabinet's discretion, if it seems that it affects, astonishingly, national economic security, regional economic security, or national food security. These are the kind of cuts to regulations that Margaret Thatcher engaged in that led to mad cow disease. You don't cut corners on health and safety. You don't cut corners on pesticide regulation for national economic concerns overriding a Minister of Environment or a Minister of Health. It's quite surprising. So having been unable to speak to Bill C-30 at second reading debate, now we come to Bill C-31. So I have to say I was astonished in reading Bill C-31 and its 331 pages to find that it too takes aim at the Pest Control Products Act. This time it's found in Division 13 and changes to the Pest Control Products Act to reduce the mandatory review every 15 years to look at a substance and see has the situation changed, let's have an evaluation. They're routine, but the bill we have before us today changes the review so that a minister, and this gets murky. Mr. Speaker, as someone who practiced law, one of the things you hate to see in new legislation is changing definitions, because most legislation, by the time it's gone around for a couple of years, and this legislation's been around for decades, the meaning of the words is clear. So there's not a lot of room for uncertainty and not knowing what you're dealing with. But in this legislation, we suddenly have a discretionary initiate an assessment, and then if the minister is convinced that on the basis of the assessment, the health and safety and environmental risks of a registered pest control product have increased significantly, then the minister may have an evaluation or a reevaluation, but the minister may also decide at any time to stop the reevaluation. So there's no certainty, and certainly from a public health point of view and from an environmental point of view, this fundamentally weakens the regime with which we use chemicals and products that are, by definition, these products are intended to be toxic. They're intended to kill things. It's not an accident. That's their purpose. So the notion that the language maintains that we're no longer going to have cyclical reevaluations undermines science. That's the bottom line. So the Eco-Justice, one of Canada's preeminent environmental law groups, finds that this is not to quote from their website, but that they consider this must be amended, that we must maintain cyclical reevaluations and uphold science-based decision-making. But in the 1 minute I have left, Mr. Speaker, earlier today, one member here present presented a really important petition, and I'm wondering if these things aren't connected. Is there a pro-pesticide bias emerging from this government that connects with cutting the Swift Current research at the agriculture station in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, which was the country's preeminent researcher for many years in organic agriculture? Does the current government dislike the idea of organic agriculture? Does it want to promote pesticide-based agriculture? So again, here we are, Mr. Speaker, in my remaining 20 seconds. This bill has had, as far as I can count it, about 1.5 days of debate. Its first day of debate, most of the debate time was occupied by the farewell speech from the honourable member for Laurier Sainte Marie. Here we are, Mr. Speaker. Time is up. but we have to let Canadians know this is unacceptable.